Matthew Street was our street. It was absolutely derelict. And there were a lot of people round from the 60s that still used to frequent the pub on Matthew Street, the Grapes. And, you know, they used to tell me stories. And I used to be mesmerised that all that had happened on this street and now it's derelict. And there was no sign of it anywhere.
God, it's changed, eh? So this is where it all started for us,
Yes.
Bill. It was Probe Records. I mean, these were like the kind of steps to heaven.
Like, Probe Records was amazing. It's still great now, but then it was like, you'd go down there on a Saturday and you'd know everyone, and it was like an extension of Eric's, really.
Jeff didn't mind you hanging around to the point where I started working in Probe just because I knew music. And he taught us to insult the customers, but not until you've sold a record.
But the one that was on the corner that was famous for having Pete Burns in there with his black eyes intimidating the punters, it was exciting. You were on a voyage of discovery to see what you could find. And I think that sort of cool indie shop was an essential ingredient in the formula of our generation's music.
You could spend your whole day and night, which is what I did and what most of us did, between Probe and the Armadillo tea rooms, but talking about music and planning and politics and theatre and film.
The first time I met Bob Wooler, who was the DJ in the Cavern, I was walking around town and people used to follow me quite a lot, you know, just to sort of look at me. And I was aware that I'd been in a few shops and there was an old guy following me. Eventually I just stopped in the street and said, "Hi, are you following me?" And he said, yeah, I'm following you. I've been following you all day. You know, he said, "I often follow you." And he started walking down the street with me, and it was Bob Wooler, and he told me he'd been the DJ at the Cavern. And he said, "You know, there used to be a lot of people like you in this city." And the first time I saw you, I was so excited because I thought, oh my God, the city's going to come to life again.
I was the 49th person to go in to Eric's the night it opened while he was 50. And he's always not hated me for that, but he would have swapped that for anything. Because we went there on the first night, it was like, because we went to the same school and we hung around together on, you know, after school on a Friday night and played music and stuff, and went to the pub underage. And he said, you know, we were both aware of what was going on with the pistols and stuff. And I was like, should we go? And I'm thinking, shut now. I think I was 16. I was like, I don't even look 9, you know what I mean? He said, "Don't worry, you'll be with me." And then threw me in before he got knocked back to Eric's. And I think it might have been dooring on the door or whatever. But I got in, it was like, so now where's me rum and black, you know? And it was so exciting to go down.
Yeah, I liked Eric's. It was a hot club, you know, but what made it special is what came out of it.
There was like an in crowd. There was like Pete Burns, you know, Jayne Casey, Holly Johnson, Paul Rutherford.
It was unbelievable, and just, there was a thrill, but there was also, don't take the piss out of this place.
Roger Eagle used to put gigs on at Liverpool Stadium. He was the guy who put the gigs on mostly that we used to go and see on a Friday and a Saturday. And so when he'd kind of spot you around town, he had that thing of having an eye out for what was going on. And although Eric's became known as the punk club, he'd set it up, him and Pete Fulwell, before punk rock happened, and Ken Testy was the third of them. And he knew that there was more to a venue than just putting gigs on. There was a scene to be had, and he also knew that the next generation of music could come from there, you know.
Roger Eagle was the heart and soul, and he was an intimidating sod as well.
He was just an imposing character, you know, and he was like a lot older and he was big. It was his club and we didn't want to get kicked out.
Dear Roger, 6'4", barrel-chested, you always knew where he was. He couldn't hide. And he was an evangelist.
He was the kind of guy who steered you towards stuff. Things came from every angle. If it was good, Roger would throw it at you.
I got to know more because it was always one of them. It was like getting to know Sodding, the friendly stuff.
It was a punk club, but it wasn't. There weren't really punk bands in Liverpool. The people that gravitated towards Eric's wanted to do something a little bit more intellectual, a bit more interesting. There was more of a sort of art school, pseudo-intellectual thing going on in Eric's, more so than just kind of hardcore punk thing.
But Roger I think he had a chemistry lab. I think he was Frankenstein and we were his monsters, you know.
You had Pete Wiley and Wah, you had Copey and the Teardrop Explodes, you had Mac and the Bunnymen, and they were probably the three main things at the time. And then you had the Pale Fountains, which was Nick Head and John Head, and then you had the Wild Swans. So they were all part of the same thing.
The musical scene at that time in Liverpool was absolutely amazing. There was so much going on, and everybody the thing I'm really proud about with Liverpool at that time is nobody sounded the same. They called it the New Mersey Beat in the Sounds magazine. I remember thinking, oh, that's a bit cheesy. We're not the New Mersey Beat, and there's no scene anyway, we all hate each other.
The first two bands that Eric's had of their own, really, who were influenced by what was going on, were the Spitfire Boys, which Paul Rutherford from Frankie Goes to Hollywood sang in, and Budgie from Susie and the Banshees played drums with. And Big in Japan, which, you know, Yorkie, I think, christened a supergroup in reverse. It was Holly Johnson, Jayne Casey, Bill Drummond from the KLF, Ian Brodie from the Lightning Seeds, again, Budgie.
You've got a load of kids in the audience who really want to be in bands. You've got Ian McCulloch, you've got Julian Cope, you've got Pete Wiley, you know, and they're burning to be on that stage, and if it means they have to kick you off it to get there, they're going to...
You know, I'd go as far as to say that we are the most Liverpool of all the Liverpool bands. I mean, Teardrop were influenced by Julian being middle class and from out of town. Max thing was beautiful but different as well, you know, it's gothic, not goth, but gothic and dark.
He's a great performer, he's a great storyteller. I love that band. We're not supposed to have favorites. I've signed a lot of bands. They're one of my favorite bands.
When Paul Humphries and I decided we were going to go and play this one gig in Eric's in 1978, we were painfully aware that there wouldn't be an awful lot of people who would necessarily like what we did. We'd always been outsiders, both with our friends on the Wirral Peninsula and within the Eric's crowd. So I think we consciously chose the most obtuse name we could come up with to try and reflect the fact that we were going to endeavour to do something different. Yeah, the speed at which things moved from doing this one supposed only gig at Eric's, things just snowballed. We met Tony Wilson. Once he decided he was going to sign us, he then was the first person to come and say to us, "You are the future of pop music." And we were like, F off, we're experimental, don't call us pop. He chose to put out a single, so we had a single out within 8 months of doing our first ever gig. That got heard by a major label in London. We didn't have any concerts on the horizon, so they came to see us play all of our 6 songs in Paul's mother's back room where they'd all been written. And the next time we saw them, they offered us a 7-album deal. And that was all within 9-10 months of doing our one gig. We cobbled together this primitive, sort of punky electro-English version of what we were trying to be like our Heroes Kraftwerk. And, I mean, we were both 16.
She likes a drink, she likes to think she's headed somewhere better than the place she is.
We were a little bit down the pecking order, you know. It's like the Bunnymen and the Teardrops and It's a Material and Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark and, you know, Dalek Eye and China Crisis and, you know, there was a load of them and they were all a bit higher up than us. So we kind of passed a flock of seagulls, you know. just going up the M62 to Lancaster.
You know, it's quite bizarre in some ways, because this was, again, a part of our kind of, I guess, the next part of the journey, really. And the banking part of the city, really. I mean, everybody... I'm never quite sure, you know, what the significance is of State House here.
Yes.
Everyone looking back thinks that this was the State, but of course, this wasn't the State. It was further along here. So this, Bill, this was the State Ballroom, of course, which you know it as well. You know, it's a historic building. You know,
I used to go here, and we used to have, like, I remember one night when Cass and the Casanovas were on, and I was just going to start the first issue of Merseybeat. So I rushed down here, and Scylla was there, mate of ours, Scylla, and I'd asked her to do a fashion column for me for Merseybeat. I rushed back to the office and wrote it down. I thought, oh God, Scylla, what's her last name? Because I've been working all for hours, and I thought, what's her name? And I looked at the column. It was all about fashion with colours, and I said, it's black, Scylla Black, and I put down Scylla Black. She came in the office and says, you know, my dad's going mad because my name's Scylla White. You put Scylla Black, but I like it and I'm going to keep it.
Oh,
and it was all here at the State,
Lord. But what it became famous for was club music, really. So it was where you kind of, again, got educated, but a lot of the music that came through. Of course, it was the place where Frankie Goes to Hollywood filmed.
From the audience, you could tell there was a bit of a buzz, and it was quite exciting and a bit dangerous at the same time. I could do with Frankie, nobody wanted to know. Everybody quite liked the idea of the two girls wearing next to nothing, prancing around the stage in leather knickers with whips, but quite didn't really fancy the two gay geezers wearing the same sort of stuff. ZTT, not a great contract, they want everything, but we get to work with Trevor Horn, and we all knew about Trevor Horn and the records he made. I think the sound between the very first recording of Relax and to what came out did morph through about 7 different stages. Did an amazing job. Sonically, it sounds fantastic, but there was an awful lot of shit thrown at the wall to get to that. I was 19 when we got signed to ZTT. I always describe it as going to a party in 1983 and coming home in 1987, because that's what it was like. You're going here, you're going there, you're doing this, you're in the studio, you're making records, you're doing TV shows, you're flying first class everywhere. You're going, you know, every night you're hanging out in a nightclub in London, you're getting free drinks off people. Everybody, you know, everywhere you go, somebody wants to have a party with you. What's not to like? Beginning, you're 5 bandits going out to go and, like, conquer the world. And that's what it felt like. But as soon as fame comes into the equation, people change.
When you read